But I am never the one to suggest past life regression. I only do it if that's what they want.
I see that you first find out that this is a person who's open to that. Today, I am privileged and honored to have my hypnotherapist, Lynn Sparrow Christy, with me. She is a hypnotherapist life coach, a longtime presenter on topics related to spiritual growth. She has also written several books, as well as numerous home study courses and magazine articles on these topics. You can learn more about her work at accessyourpotential.net, and I've also put that link down below.
There is the principle of if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
And in one sense, if you can fix it within the framework of where that person's worldview is, that's enough. There is, I talked about in terms of sixth chakra, psychic sickness, premature opening of the third eye. And I'm not sure anybody can impose that on somebody else, but I don't even want to try to take somebody someplace that they have not organically arrived at.
I see. They're not there at all.
Right.
So why force them? It's like throwing someone who's afraid of water into a pool.
Exactly. And therefore, the other thing, you can trust the gatekeeper of memory to be your best ally in doing hypnotic work with a client. That is, there is someone who is in charge of whether a memory does or doesn't come through. And it's not me. It's not my client's conscious mind. It's my client's deeper mind. And we could, we could label that various ways, and I'm not going to go down that road. But I know that the non-conscious, deeper awareness of my client ultimately says yes or no and leads the way. So sometimes if I'm not sure whether it would be good to maybe prod the possibility of past lives, I just do an open-ended session to go back to the origin. And a person might go back to something that happened when they were 4 years old, or they might go back to something that happened 400 years ago. But I don't lead the witness. I let their non-conscious gatekeeper be the one. And I think that's a good way to stay out of trouble.
Yes. I noticed in my my recordings of our sessions, I noticed you don't lead me.
Right.
That you very often will say and notice what you see and
Yes.
feel, and you don't say something like, do you see more than one boat? Or you don't ask any of those kind of questions ever. And the funny thing, in the recording, it seems forever before I speak. And because I remember what was going on with me, it's that in my mind, I'm remembering this. I'm remembering, and while I'm hypnotized, you've asked me a question, and it's not an immediate answer. I have to remember, did he say this? Did he say that? So I'm going through my memories just like I would now consciously. And you wait.
Yeah.
You wait. There's these long, long silences.
And that's important. You never, ever want to lead the witness. For one thing, anybody at the end of a past life regression is probably going to wonder, was that real? Did I just make that up? Is that based on some novel I read 30 years ago and I forgot that I read it? All that kind of thing. And so the more I refrain from any leading, the more it is genuinely welling up from inside the person. And the more what they are going to have to kind of discern about afterward is likely to be a very valid something brought up from their own deeper memory. And I don't want to muddy the water. And waiting and knowing, sometimes if the silence goes on too long, I will say, are you aware of anything? Give me some feedback so I know how best to help you. There are ways that, because sometimes a person is passively waiting for a movie to show up on the backs of their closed eyelids. They don't yet get that the eye of the mind doesn't work that way. That the way you remember a past life is the same way you remember what you had for breakfast this morning. You don't close the eye of the mind deals with the images and the thoughts and the feelings that the mind can bring up. But it isn't like suddenly you have a Steven Spielberg spectacular being projected onto your closed eyelids and you just sit by and watch it. Sometimes what happens becomes so engrossing that you're just sucked into reliving it. And again, I always give people the option, if reliving it is too intense, we can pull them out and have them witness it from outside, which is perfectly acceptable. If people know that they are not necessarily going to get stuck in some traumatic memory, they feel safer and more willing to go there. And we can always pull them out if need be.
Yes, you've done that. And that's one of the reasons why I have said in my videos how important it is to go see someone who is well qualified and has a lot of experience. Because when I think of some of the situations I have remembered, how grateful I've been that you have a lot of experience and can get me out of it, because you're actually like living it again.
Yeah, you are. And the thing for me is I tend to kind of imaginatively go with my client, and I have I can picture the things you have talked about in your regressions, particularly the more recent ones, the ones from decades ago, a little fuzzier, but I do have some images. But I have to be very careful. Most of the time, my images match, when we talk about it afterward, I feel like I do tend to get there with the client, but I have to be very careful that I am not spinning my own story based on what my client is saying. But I have a vivid picture of this woman walking by the waterside and the boat there. And I can see it all in my mind. I can see the house she lived in because I go there with my own imaginative mind.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Lynn.
You're welcome, Carolyn.
Yeah, it's just wonderful. And like I said earlier, now there's so many more things I want to talk with you about, but there was so much in this time today that I gained so much from learning about it. And I know other people will also. So thanks so much.
You're very welcome. It's been my pleasure.